Perfect, thank you. Hello, my name is Chris Soley, and I'm the webinar coordinator for the Center for Disaster Research and Education here at Millersville University. Today we are continuing our 90% webinar series, where we look at some of the hazards responsible for the world's major disasters. Today, we are privileged to have Mr. Todd Leiss from the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission joining us. Todd Leiss is the Traffic Incident Management Coordinator in the Traffic Engineering and Operations Department for the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission. Prior to becoming the Traffic Incident Management Coordinator, he worked as an Operations Center duty officer for more than 15 years in the Traffic Operations Center. Prior to his tenure at the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission, he worked as an emergency dispatcher at the Derry Township Police Department and at Lebanon County 911. Today, Todd is a former volunteer firefighter, emergency medical technician, and hazardous material team member. Todd currently resides in Lower Swatara Township with his wife and 2 Siberian Huskies. And now I'll turn it over to Mr. Todd Leiss.
Thanks, Chris. Glad everybody could join us here for the webinar. Wanted to talk about Jonas. We've talked about it this a number of times. We've made a lot of changes and a lot of connections since Jonas happened. So we just want to sort of run through, sort of give you what the slide says here. So you think it can't happen to you. 2016 was sort of a challenging year for the Turnpike. 2017 didn't really start off real great for us either with the Delaware River Bridge. The one thing that we do have planned for 2018 is we're removing the days of January 19th through the 21st from the Turnpike calendar, since that's when we had Jonas and we also had the Delaware River Bridge crack. So once we get rid of those days on the next year's calendar, we should be good. Or I'm taking vacation those days, either one. So again, as I said, my name is Todd Leiss, Traffic Incident Management Coordinator. A little bit of background for my job. Traffic Incident Management, we handle the non-reoccurring congestion that occurs on the Turnpike, the accidents, those kind of things, and what we could do to make those improvements. So that's part of my job. I'm in charge of our fire, EMS, and towing on our Turnpike system. We pay our volunteer firefighters a small stipend to respond on the Turnpike, as well as our EMTs, and then we contract with our towing companies on the Turnpike. So that's part of my responsibilities. We look to, like I said, try to find ways to keep traffic moving. And so even a situation like Jonas, which is, non-reoccurring congestion, how do we keep traffic moving when we have a storm or when we have a situation like this? These are some historic photographs from what our Traffic Operations Center used to look like from the time the Turnpike opened through the years now. The photo in the bottom right there was probably from about 5 years ago. This is our Traffic Operations Center now, which we work in High Spire. If you ever heard the radio and you hear them call High Spire, these are the people that you're talking to. That back rows are our radio operators. They're now called Traffic Operations Center technicians. They're the union employees. They're the dispatchers. They're the ones sending out the calls for help. The people in the back row there, those are the supervisors. They're the ones that are pretty much making decisions, putting signs up on the roadway, the DMS signs, putting the highway advisory radios on, and helping to make a lot of decisions. So, again, the number one thing, saving minutes, saving lives, keeping traffic moving, that's important to us. So traffic incidents happen and storms. So we'll move into the extended closure that we had out between Bedford and Breezewood. If you guys can imagine where this is, if you ever traveled the Pennsylvania Turnpike, got out towards the Allegheny Tunnel area, the area that we're referring to is the area just before if you're heading westbound, just before the Allegheny Tunnel, where you see the church with the steps leading down to the Turnpike. That's the New Baltimore area of the Turnpike. There's not much in the town of New Baltimore. The church is there, the fire company's there, covered bridge. There's no gas station that I know of. There's no Sheets. There's nothing that you're going to get off there and say, provide me some assistance. It's a rural area of the Turnpike. So in 2016, we had Winter Storm Jonas impact the eastern and northeastern part of the United States and affected us. We had over 1,000 vehicles probably trapped on the roadway for approximately 24 hours in a 12-mile section of the turnpike. Okay, our response to recovery began Friday evening and extended up through the afternoon of Sunday, January 24th. Safe conclusion of the operation. We were very lucky. No one died during this incident. I believe only 1 or 2 people were transported to the hospital during this incident. And this was directly because of the volunteer firefighters, EMTs we had, maintenance workers, state employees, National Guard. But the initial people that responded were our towers. Our towers worked for 57 straight hours out there as well. So that's who is primarily responsible for the great effort. So how do we prepare when we lead up to a storm? Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, PEMA, PennDOT, the Turnpike have weather preparedness meetings. We have AccuWeather on the meetings, National Weather Service on the conference calls. We do a lot of conference calls. So this was probably a little bit different in the respect of we knew that there was weather coming. We knew it was going to be a big storm. So we were prepared. We had a number of times where we've discussed on what our plans were. Friday, we had an internal meeting here at the Turnpike that we talked about the standby schedules. Our ASPs are our tow trucks. So if we know bad weather is coming, we're going to put tow trucks out in trouble spots in construction areas so that we can make sure that we keep the roadway open. The safety advisors are some of the State Patrol trucks. They're an extra set of eyes on that we could have out on the roadway. They also have cameras on their vehicles, so we're able to see what's going on there. So that was our plan. Originally, we were planning on putting our tow trucks out 8 a.m. in the morning. We expected snow overnight, but we wanted to make sure that when people started traveling the next day, we were going to make sure that we had tow trucks available so that if anybody ran into problems, we could get them off the roadway quick. Usually during these storms where we run into problems are going to be with the empty commercial vehicle tractor trailers and with the tandems. So if you ever see a lot of FedEx and a lot of UPS trucks, they're the doubles. Those are the ones that had trouble pulling the hills. So those are who we expected to have problems with. At 3 p.m., we issued a travel advisory saying we're going to reduce our speed limits on some section of the roadway due to the weather, and we're going to ban certain types of trucks. The problem for us is, we coordinate with PennDOT as to what they're going to do as well. If we say that we're not going to let trucks on our roadway, well, those trucks aren't going to just sit somewhere. They're going to travel somewhere. So if we restrict trucks on our roadway, we're going to be dumping them onto PennDOT roadways and vice versa. So we try to coordinate so that if we're going to shut down, PennDOT's going to keep their roadway open and vice versa. If PennDOT's going to shut down their roadways, they're going to give those trucks a chance to get out somewhere and travel for at least a limited period of time until they can find a place to pull over. It's a challenge. You can imagine if you have all this truck traffic and all of a sudden you say you can't travel, where are you going to park them? And those are the local towns and a lot of the communities that we have along our system. We gridlocked towns, and we gridlocked Somerset several times this year because we restricted trucks, so we had to get them off our system. Okay, at 5:41 p.m., our traffic operations center advised PEMA and PennDOT that we're going to place our 45 mile per hour speed limit restriction into effect at 8:30 p.m. effectively, and also ban tractor trailers and trucks. What's some of the challenge when we do this? We could put these recommendations out there. We could put information up on the signs. We could tell everybody we're restricting this, but we're not having anybody out there actively telling these trucks they can't travel. This is a recommendation that we do. We put this out there, but we don't have the police out there stopping every vehicle saying you can't come on, you can't do this. It's really limited. We're also kind of limited at our interchanges to even block off gates. That's one of the challenges we have. That's one of the challenges PennDOT has, is how do you stop somebody from getting on the roadway that you don't want there? You could put barriers up there, you could pile snow up there, but people are going to drive them. If they're determined to drive, they're going to drive regardless of whether you're trying to stop them or not. So that's some of the challenges. At 8:30, we implemented our 45 mile per hour speed limit a little bit earlier than we planned. Started getting all the travel advisories. We put the information out on social media. We try to do this and try to get the message out. Also through the news media, we send out weather alerts. So some of the primary locations we want to talk about for this incident were the area around the 105 eastbound to the left side of your screen there. We had multiple disabled tractor trailers getting stuck in the snow. That's a very mountainous area that travels up there. So it presented some challenges. We also had some multiple tractor trailers stuck in the 126 westbound area. What's the key to those things? Well, they're on either side of Somerset, and as I said, we contract with our towers on the system. So our tower for that area is Herrings, which is our tower, very big towing company, but they are the ones responsible for both of those areas for towing vehicles out of. So we had them out there right away at that time pulling vehicles out of there. As part of this, we also had a traffic stoppage plan at Keg Maintenance there at 907. That was part of a designated plan that we had that where you see the New Baltimore words written in the center of the screen there. That's a project that we had going on, construction project, that we couldn't lift the pattern. It's 2 lanes through there, but there's a jersey barrier, a 6-foot jersey barrier on either side of the roadway. So it's 2 lanes, but there's no shoulder, either a left shoulder or right shoulder. It's only the 2 lanes of concrete there because of the New Baltimore Slide project. The reason why it's called the New Baltimore Slide project is because the mountain there, the big dirt hill, was slowly moving down onto the roadway. So we had to actually go there, do a major excavation project, and pretty much rebuild that whole hill, take some of that away so that wasn't sliding down, put in some drainage, and do some moves there. So that's what went on there. So that the problem we had there then is we had 2 lanes open that was on concrete barrier on both sides. So that's where traffic started to bottleneck. When these trucks got there, got stuck in the snow, they couldn't move. So where there's 2 lanes there for them to get by, at one point we had 5 or 6 tractor trailers sitting side by side, all trying to make it up the hill, because of course if you see somebody get stuck, the next guy thinks, oh, I could get past there. I'm going to try to drive past and keep moving to get past there. So they got stuck there. In addition, what happened was, PEMA had planned on activating that evening at 8 p.m. Prior to that, I'm our agency's lead agency representative at the time. I think they were called EPLOs. So I was going to go to PEMA at 8 p.m. that night. Because of the snow that happened in this area, whenever I left here, I went home, left work here, went home, showered, changed, and went to PEMA. And I was at PEMA prior to that single truck crash at Everett at 5:21 p.m. there. That's on the right-hand side. This is what the result was for the initial cause of the, Jonas traffic backlog and trap queue that we had. Commercial tractor trailer was sitting sideways, completely blocking the roadway. That's hauling 63,000 pounds of Belgian chocolate that was used for baking. A very expensive load. And as you can see, what they're doing there is they are pulling the driver out of the cab. They formed a human chain to bring him up the hill. That's a very steep hill that goes down there. There's a stream below that and a couple houses. What we did doing that day to get the roadway open is we took one of our turnpike loaders, one of our big bucket trucks, and we took and pushed that truck down that hill. Luckily it didn't go to the bottom of the hill. It got stuck on a tree there, but that's the photo in the bottom left corner there is showing when the vehicle recovery took place. That's how it's hanging there on that hill. Give you a few more pictures. This is a recovery. We did the recovery about a week later. Obviously, the company that had the chocolate wasn't real impressed that we pushed it over the side. The tower was even less than impressed with us that we pushed it over the side, because it created a challenge for him to try to bring that back up the hill intact. He did do that. They had 4 heavy wreckers out there over $1 million worth of towing equipment, and they were able to bring that up over the hill and safely recover the load. The company that owned that product, they were very happy. They got paid that same day for doing that recovery when they brought that up over the hill. So what happened there is, we had traffic stuck for probably an hour and a half behind that crash. You couldn't get any traffic through. Normally, if we have a situation like that, we'll do what we call a Plan X. It's a detour. Because of the severity of the storm that we had coming here, our detour for that area would be to take them south from Breezewood, have them go down Interstate 70 to Interstate 68, and back up and get back on at the newsstand interchange. Because the snow was supposed to be heavy south of us in Maryland, we didn't want to take our problem and create a problem for Maryland and send those motorists off the system. We wanted to make sure we kept everybody on the roadway. We felt if we got the roadway open in an hour and a half, yes, they would be inconvenienced. They'd sit in the backlog, but they would be safer than if we'd send them off of our roadway. So this is, 3 hours later, this is the snow coming down. This is a little camera that sits up overlooking the New Baltimore Slide project. This is, looks like a little shed that sits up on the hill there that had a camera in there. So we were getting pictures of how bad the storm was. So 2 hours later, you see the snow still coming down. You still see traffic sitting there. This is in the morning, still heavy traffic sitting there. So here's the weather synopsis. So what happened is, we expected our weather and our storm and our problems to be more of an eastern storm. We sent our snowblowers some extra resources out actually to the Philadelphia area as opposed to Somerset. We got heavier than anticipated snow out in the Somerset area. Once that traffic, we had that heavy traffic out there, once you had the traffic tied up on that hill leading up to the Allegheny Tunnel and getting stuck, then the plows can't make it around. Heavier snow just builds up and builds up, builds up around those vehicles. So that's part of the problem. So the blue indicates the forecasted snowfall for Friday morning. The red indicates the forecasted snowfall Friday PM, and the actual snowfall is there in green. This was the results. This is what happened. People were sitting out there. They were stuck in traffic. We couldn't get people out there. The decision was made that night once traffic was going. This wasn't from when they initially got stuck. We were getting traffic moving. We would open traffic up. It would start moving for a few minutes, then it would shut down because somebody else would get stuck. So this was the challenge that we faced. So all during this time in the evening from 8 p.m., 9 p.m. up to 11 or 11:30, we were still getting traffic moving. We were still keeping traffic moving. It was moving slow, but it was moving. And our towers were working to get the roadway open. The challenge was, one, you're in a blizzard. You have 50, 60 mile per hour winds, or if it wasn't a blizzard, it was close to a blizzard, and you have heavy snow. So for our towers there, if you've ever traveled out there, that's a very steep hill. They weren't able to drive straight down there and turn around because there wasn't room for them to drive and turn around. So they had to go to the Allegheny Tunnel and then back down probably a 3.5 or a 4 mile hill in the dark, in the snow, doing a blizzard. What normally took them 15 minutes to recover a vehicle, it took 45 minutes. They took and they towed the vehicles from the scene there down at the bottom of the hill. They would tow it up into the tunnel, unhook in the tunnel, and then let the person go. The Turnpike paid the towing for this. Turnpike paid over $189,000 in towing for this event. The customers were not charged for this. So what are some of the other challenges and some of the reasons why we had such a big backlog? Well, there was a very large, high-profile group, of March for Life event in Washington, D.C. that weekend. Many of these groups felt that they could beat the storm out because the storm was predicted to come later into that area. So they left Washington, D.C., came up 70, got on the Turnpike to head home. These were a lot of high school students, college students, colleges, Catholic, pro-life choices that were down there in Washington, D.C. So there's quite a few tour buses there. One of the other groups that were there were the Duquesne men's basketball team. They finished playing at 4:30 on Friday and thought they could make it home. Duquesne basketball team, I think every one of them had a cell phone. Every one of them got on Twitter and said they were stuck and nobody checked on them. I think they were probably the most checked on bus out there for the whole incident because they kept saying they weren't checked on, and we kept making sure that we checked on them. So we had some people out there checking on them. The problem was, the Duquesne men's basketball team was close to the Temple girls gymnastics team. Why they didn't make friends, if they could have waited out the storm together, I don't know, but that's what happened. So the challenge, people sitting in a spot, very rural area. This was probably one of the most rural areas of the state, between two interchanges that were the furthest distance in the state, getting bad weather, limited resources off the system in the area to even open up access gates. We were asked why we didn't open access gates up. If you open them up, you're putting them into state game lands that have no resources close by, that the roads aren't plowed. PennDOT was very helpful for us here. We worked together closely. We were sitting in a room probably 5 feet apart, asking what we could do to help each other and to try to get the roadway open. The road closure, one of the things, Turnpike maintenance was out plowing and trying to treat the roadway. Traffic was either approaching or already on the roadway at the time of the incident. One of the things that we do, if we have to do a detour, we call them a Plan X. And our maintenance staff is who goes out there and detours traffic. So you have your choice here of whether you want to try to detour traffic or you want them to keep treating the roadway. We're like many agencies where we have a limited pool of resources. We don't have an unlimited pool of maintenance employees. And when we have a storm like this, it's pretty much an all hands on deck type storm. These guys will come into the maintenance shed, guys and girls, they'll come into the maintenance shed, and they'll work from the time the storm starts until the storm finishes. That may be 40 hours in a row with very little sleep. So they're out there. Conditions, like you said, the Plan X detour, we couldn't really send our detour out to the area of Maryland where our detour routes were because they were having the same situation and same issues we were, so we don't want to send people off the roadway. We felt it was better to keep people shelter in place in their vehicles. So as I mentioned earlier, we did a traffic stoppage at Keg Maintenance. This was part of a predetermined traffic operations plan to try to keep people out of those cattle chute areas I talked about. This was a plan made up by Sergeant Iannuzzi, who was with the Pennsylvania State Police in Somerset. He developed this plan that if we had an accident or we had an incident in those cattle chutes, we would stop traffic by Keg Maintenance, which is our maintenance facility there, so that we could either detour them, turn them around, or get them out of there. The problem with the Keg Maintenance shed being there is that access gate, that road to turn people around, is a very small road behind the maintenance shed. It's not made to turn commercial vehicles, tractor trailers, buses, those types of things, even though we did get some of those vehicles off. It's more for passenger cars to get off. So we started turning people at the Keg Maintenance gate at 1:30, and then the access gate at the 1:38 was at 8:35, and then the access gate at the 129 mile marker was at 1:10 p.m. Some of the reasons why we couldn't turn people at those gates before that is because we had to get the roadways plowed, and we didn't want to send people again off the system into an area where people are going to get lost and get stuck. So Saturday morning, we started the Tiger Team approach. And to be quite honest with you, Saturday morning when they came to me, and I think Marty said to me, we're going to do a Tiger Team. It's like, okay, what the heck's a Tiger Team? I might have used some stronger language than that, but that's what my thought was. I had no idea what a Tiger Team was. I now know it's coming up with a plan to identify 3 distinct approaches in a room, shelter in place, and what we were going to do with that plan. So it was getting everybody in the room to talk about what the plan was, which was a great idea. I mean, that was the approach we needed to have at that point. That approach also included using the Keg Maintenance facility for restrooms, warming, and food distribution. I should have mentioned earlier, at about 11:30 the night of the storm, the Friday night of the storm, we called the county 911 centers, and we asked for fire companies to be dispatched to start checking on the motorists and to start checking on the customers. The volunteer fire companies and the EMTs and the county personnel that respond out there, those are the heroes that pretty much saved everybody. They were going on foot in weather, probably 2.5 feet of snow at that point, walking from car to car, checking on the motorists. They wanted to make sure that everybody was okay, tailpipes were cleared off, and try to answer questions. One of the things that we did poorly here at the Turnpike that we have changed since this storm was, we didn't send out any kind of alerts to social media other than, people are stuck in their vehicles. They already knew that they're stuck in the vehicles. So we want to make sure that if in the future we communicate with our customers that are out there, and I'll go over what the plan is on how we communicate with them. One of the issues we had too is we didn't push food out to them right away. But once we did, we started getting food from some of the businesses off the system through PEMA, brought some MREs out that we were able to provide people with. We got food from our service plazas. They were able to make some pizzas and some sandwiches and bring that there. We also set up some shelters in Bedford. Cubby was very helpful in getting shelters set up and working with both Bedford and Somerset County doing this incident. We were asked a lot of times why we didn't remove barrier. Well, one of the challenges, again, of removing barrier is that barrier is usually asphalted into place. On top of that, add in, like I said, 2.5 feet of snow, ice. They were out jackhammering trying to get these barrier in place. We were trying to keep traffic moving eastbound, even though we had the westbound closure, so that we could make sure that we had an escape route for people if we had to get them over the barrier. We had to maintain those eastbound lanes. So we were working to plow. So we really don't want to try to detour traffic and open up this barrier because that's a safety issue then. Once the snow stops, we were able to open up some of the barrier, and those are the locations where we opened up those barriers to try to get rid of some of the backlog. What that involves is taking a high lift or something out there to actually lift those concrete barriers in place and move them so you have room to turn those vehicles around and make a U-turn with those. So this is some of the effort of turning and digging people out there. We had people using everything at all possible, including a lobster pot, to try to dig themselves out. So you can see here, many people appreciated our efforts. The gentleman at the bottom, I think he was telling us we were #1. That was one of our fine motorists that were stuck in traffic. Again, I'm sure that he meant that was a universal sign of go team. So reaction to aftermath. Obviously, people were very angry. They're stuck on the roadway. We worked continuously to try to get people out of there. What we did good was, we went through and made sure nobody died, which is, again, a miracle. We got resources out there. What we didn't do bad, I tell people when I describe a situation, it's like a lot of cogs in a machine that are spinning around working, and you have a lot of these people working. We never really came together as one big cohesive unit, and as the Turnpike and as our lead AREP, a lot of that blame would fall on me. We were working. Our state police, we did incident command. We had many people out there with incident command, but we did not have one big overall incident command at the scene. So in the future, we work to strengthen our relationships to make sure that we do have those improvements. Of course, when you have incidents like this, you get people that are second guessing what happened, and definitely heard about it from the news media. And like I said, there's some justification, some rightly so. We got notified by the news media, but just work to make improvements. These are some of the agencies that assisted us doing the closure. We had great assistance from the community and from the agencies that responded to help us out. So those are some of the things. So here we are a couple days later. We're still buried in. This is a vehicle right outside of our office here, our Turnpike Industrial Park building, and this is some of the local roadways here. This is our director's driveway going in. I guess he was lucky somebody actually plowed him out of the driveway, so he got out of there. So what happens after one of these incidents is over? We do immediately after this incident, we started working with our partner agencies, and we started to come up with a plan. So the Monday after this weekend storm, we were already starting to collect information. We were starting to look at what we needed to do to make to become better. I think we've did a lot better at doing that. We built better relationships. I think we have a very strong relationship now with Somerset and Bedford County and with other agencies across the state. We work better with our volunteer fire companies, EMTs, and towing companies, as well as other state agencies. One of the things we did was develop our 10 best practices identified, 23 ongoing projects and initiatives, and 22 new opportunities for improvement. So we worked to do this. We did our after-action review. We got together with all the agencies that were involved. We went out, talked to the fire DMS. We talked to our towers. The one thing that we learned we did very poor is, like I said, our towers worked 57 straight hours. We never bothered to get water out to them. So if you're in a situation like this, make sure that your volunteers and your people working have the support that they need. Again, I didn't think about that until several weeks after the incident, and I said to them, what did you guys do for food and water? And they said, we broke icicles off the truck for water. That's no fun. You got to take care of your people. We did have a PA House Transportation Committee hearing and Joint Senate hearing, and then we developed a final after-action review report. If you want to see the after-action review, the full copy of it is available on the Turnpike website. You can go there and you can find the after-action reviews on our website. One of the things that we do, and one of my missions and my responsibilities for the Turnpike, is after-action reviews. And we're very lucky that the personnel I have helping with the after-action reviews, if we make a mistake, we own up to the mistake. We list the good stuff, we list the bad stuff, we list the room for improvement. So situational awareness is one of the things we developed and we have since Jonas. This is a instant command case. This is something we can take out to the scene. It's portable. It's a case that sets up so we could keep track of units on the scene and know what's going on. So we have that just set up so you could figure out what lanes you have shut, what resources you have out there. When you start doing your checks, it has a built-in timer, and those are some of the things. There's storage underneath. These are used in the fire service a lot for structure fires, so we just modified it for some traffic incident awareness and for other things. Some of the other things we worked on our continuity of operation plan, our emergency transportation operation playbook. Since Jonas, we also developed a emergency response activation playbook, an ERAP that has step-by-step, what everybody's roles and responsibilities are for these incidents. We developed that as a response of, I was over at Pima, I was working over at Pima doing things. We had our war room here at the Turnpike operating, they were working. Our traffic operations center was working. This clearly spells out what everybody's doing to work for that. The emergency closure framework and procedures is something that we also developed jointly with PennDOT, Pima, State Police, and the Turnpike. This is, nobody's going to be stuck on the highway without us checking on them, without us doing something, what resources we're going to have. And I'll go into detail of that more lately. We're working on a special events playbook that's finished. Our incentive towing pilot program that we have, we rolled out here. We're doing a pilot program to see if we get the roadways open quicker. NIMS training and TIMS training. A lot of emergency responders, we do NIMS and TIM training. We've had over 1,600 individual courses. All our management employees and anybody in a response role has to take 100, 200, 700, and 800. That's a job requirement. That's a no questions asked. Everybody from our CEO to our lawyers to those staff, if you're a management employee, you take that. Selected union employees also take that. We're also doing the 300 and 400 levels. Team building and outreach, we had a team building session. We had over 50 of our people that work in the response role for us, that work in our traffic operations center and the state STMC and PEMA's watch office, and a lot of the decision makers for these storms. We got together, we had several team building sessions out at Mount Gretna that were able to work together, and I think it was really a good training to have. Get everybody talking, get everybody to know each other, get everybody out of their comfort zone a little bit, but it was definitely worthwhile. And then some after action reviews that we worked on doing. Again, talks about some of the training that we've done, the team building and the traffic incident management program. We're doing more and more public outreach with our traffic incident management program. We teach TIM classes across the state. I think so far this year we've probably trained over 500 people in traffic incident management, and trying to get out there and talk to our people more, trying to become better partners with our responders. The Backlog Motorist Assistance Plan that we have for the Turnpike, we developed our plan, so we have a way of what we're doing, trying to look at some auxiliary staffing, enhanced situational awareness. Again, that's what we talked about, is how we have situational awareness, what do we do, the size and scope of the scene, and then also medial barrier access. Are we going to put in access gates, or how we're going to handle that problem? One of the things that we're looking to do is now we're going to have designated sections of the Turnpike where we have the Jersey barrier, the median barrier, and we'll have that marked that we know that those will be loosened up, that we could pull those out much quicker than what happened during the Jonas storm or blizzard. One of the other things that we did was we went back in and looked at our Turnpike emergency weather plan, or we call it our WEMP plan. We worked with many of our staff here, and we went through and looked at that and have different weather levels, so now we're more prepared. If we're having some kind of weather coming in, we're going to have to talk about it and try to develop what our plan and our action strategy and what we're doing. One of the other things that we did is we have a contract with AccuWeather now. Before we piggybacked on the PennDOT's AccuWeather contract, now we have a contract right with AccuWeather. It's very good to have. It's nice to be able to call up Brian or call up one of the staff for AccuWeather at a moment's notice, 24 hours a day. We actually have the number written down here in our war room that if we need them, we call them up. We say, what's the weather forecast? What's it supposed to do? We also get SkyGuard alerts for specific areas of the Turnpike, so we know now, have some better situational awareness. That's one of the things we're trying to do, is try to do that. The cards that are up on the screen, these are a card. Those are double-sided, so that's the one side. These were cards that we had made up so that if we have emergency responders that have to go out to the scene and check on motorists, these are weatherproof. These are laminated cards, so they're weatherproof. We had 20,000 of these made up so they could walk up, ask the customer if they're all right, give them that number that has our contact information in, or our smartphone apps, or the websites, and then they could move on to the next car. This way it will speed up along. Even if you save 30 seconds per car when you're checking on somebody, it's going to be a huge help and a huge benefit to be able to keep moving. Talking quite a bit here, the state emergency highway closure framework. This is one of the things we talked about that we developed with PEMA, PennDOT, State Police, and the Turnpike. So I want to just go over that real briefly with you on how that works, as well as the 51PA Connect and our partnership with Waze. So after Jonas, after Interstate 78, some other major highway incidents, we wanted to come up with a plan of what we were going to do if we have a big emergency where you have a trapped queue. The trapped queue is the traffic that is between where the incident is and the last exit where they could possibly get off. Those are the people that are pretty much, we call the trapped queue. You can't go forward, you can't go backwards, you're just sort of stuck there. The plan is for this is if you're stuck there, between 2 and 4 hours, we want to make sure we start coming up with a plan. Are we going to have to get food out to you? Are we going to have to get fuel out to you? Or how are we going to get you out of there? Or what we're going to do? Or how we're going to communicate with you? So we developed this plan. There's a little bit of a matrix for the plan that starts talking about how we're going to do this. We look at 0 to 2 hours is the initial assessment and doing the target assessment. And you're looking to do joint messaging. We want to make sure that whatever message we're sending out, everybody's on the same page with that messaging. And you also want to start thinking about, do we need to make commodities out there? Are you stuck on the highway where it's 90 degrees and very humid, where you may need water and you have to start worried about people with heat stroke? Are you stuck on the highway doing a blizzard where you have to get somebody out there with heat? How are we going to talk about shelter in place? Are you going to evacuate people from their vehicles, or are they going to stay in their cars? One of the problems if we evacuate people from their vehicles is how do you reunite them with their vehicles, and what do you do with their vehicles? So you can imagine if you need to tow and move cars that are stuck on the highway, and you have 1,000 cars that you need to move, and the people are gone from those cars that you have to tow them, where are you going to put them? Where do you have enough parking to put 1,000 vehicles? And then once you move them, how do you know where those cars are at to get the people back in place? How do you reunify them back in place? That's a challenge that we had doing the years ago with the Valentine's Day ice storm that we had out here is what do you do with that? So we want to make sure that we're all on the same page and we work this matrix together. So when we have a big incident now, we're all starting to think about this matrix, PEMA, PennDOT, State Police, and the Turnpike. For any big roadway incident, we're looking at this matrix and figuring out what the plan is. So part of the component of the statewide framework is a communications component. As I said, one of the things we did poorly doing this was doing the Jonas blizzard and some of the other incidents we have is how do you communicate with the customer? How do you let them know that there's something going on? So this is a way we can let people know, try to give them information, try to push this out to them through their cell phones. 90% of the country has a cell phone. 65% have smartphones. 25% have a flip phone. 10% doesn't have anything. So that's why we want to make sure we try to reach out. So we get a hold of 90% of the people out there, we want to do that. So the way it works is if you're stuck in a line of traffic, we're going to send you out a emergency text. Similar to an Amber Alert, you're going to get an alert on your phone. If you ever got an Amber Alert on your phone, it's going to buzz on the phone. What's different here is that we could target a certain area of the Turnpike, a certain area of the PennDOT roadways by drawing a box around the road and geofencing that area. So we could specifically target those people in that area and not have to do a certain section of the state or half the state and get that notified. Once we do that, send that alert out, it will have you go to a website to direct. This is not an app. This is not anything you sign up and put on your phone beforehand. This is only for when the incident happens. We'll direct you to 511PA Connect website. You'll go there. We'll ask you a series of questions. It's going to ask you for your mobile phone number. It's going to say contact with either a text or an automated voice message. It's going to ask you what kind of vehicle you're in. It's important. There's 4 categories. One's cars, small trucks, and SUVs is one category. Commercial vehicles is another. Motor coach or school bus. The 4 categories, what we came up with is because they all have specific needs. If you're in a school bus with 40 kids, your needs are going to be different than if you're a tractor trailer driver sitting in your vehicle where you still have fuel, yes, it's unfortunate you're sitting on the highway, but you go back to your sleep or you go to sleep. You could care less if you're going to be out of there in 4 or 5 hours. That's a chance for you to rest. That's your downtime. So that's why we wanted to target those. This gives us a situational awareness that we didn't have before. We've used this successfully so far, I believe, 5 times in the state where we've had incidents. This is only going to be used for major incidents where there's a trap queue longer than 2 to 4 hours is when this is going to be pushed out. Once you sign up for this alert, these text messages are going to come to your phone. This is sort of the flow chart that we use for the system. It's kind of hard to read here, but it's the step-by-step process that we take. The one thing that's important is anticipated queue longer than 4 hours. If we recognize that there's going to be a trap queue longer than 4 hours, we're going to notify PEMA, we're going to notify PennDOT. We're working together as a team. We're all working together as a partner. We're going to start pushing this message out. If you see the shaded area of the turnpike there between the interchanges and just up from the river, this was doing one of our tests that we did. This was trying to identify how to draw the box around the roadway and how to send this out. So as the administrator, those 4 boxes or those boxes on the left-hand side is all you need to type in there to send this alert out. It's very user-friendly to send the alert out. Once that box is drawn and we click this and PennDOT, and PEMA sends out the iPause message and the WIA, you're going to get the alert that it's going to tell you to go to this website. When you go to the website, you're going to register for this closure. The shaded area are the people that are going to get that message. If we have an emergency, we're going to draw that box a little bit bigger so that we get people beyond our last exit where we get people off. We want to make sure that people driving into that know that there's an emergency ahead so that they get off. If you're not in that box when the alert goes out and you drive into that box, you'll get that message when you drive into that box. If it asks you, if you're ever in a situation where this happens to you and it asks you whether you want to provide your location, please provide your location services. It will help us geotag where your vehicle is at. We're not the NSA. We're not going to track you down weeks from now to try to see where you're at. We're not looking at your phone. We just want to know where you're at for that specific incident. Every one of those dots on that map represents a phone number. Having that information is very helpful to us in case we have to find you in an emergency. And we can target specific one of those boxes if we need to, and we can target those areas and say, look, we're going to try to get you people off of this gate. We're going to try to do this. So that's why it's important to give your location if you ever get in this situation. The blue dots are passenger cars. There's 2 different colors of red dots there. The one red dot is a commercial vehicle. The other red dots is an unknown. If you don't provide your information, it may not, if you don't fill in that little checkbox, it may not know what kind of vehicle. It will still put you on the map there. If you don't provide your location, we'll still be able to send you text messages. We just won't show you up as a dot on the map. So once we start doing this, we're going to push out a message to you every 15 minutes. We want to make sure that you are notified to what's going on. We can push out a safety message. We may just push out a message that says, clear the snow off your vehicle. We're going to soon move ahead. So we want to make sure that we get a message out to you. So hopefully that was, if you haven't seen that before, hopefully that will give you a brief overview. One of the things too that the Turnpike is, we're partners with Waze. We're able to put information into Waze. We find out that Waze, people report incidents. Waze is an app if you're not familiar with it. People tend to report information in Waze faster than they call 911. That's the age we're in now. People would rather post to social media rather than call 911 for help. We've had incidents here where we've been able to see calls that have been entered into Waze and get a picture of that before we have emergency personnel on the scene so we could get situational awareness. So all of our operations center personnel are connected on Waze. Many of our duty officers are Waze editors that we go in and edit maps if we have to. If we have a closure, they can go in there and do that right away. Waze is real nice. It gives you highway speeds, tells you where the road closures are. Like I said, we could go in there and edit maps and we could get information update. Our ENS, we feed data right into the Waze right from that, so we're able to report that. And we could also enter stuff proactively before the incident happens. If we know we have a closure coming up or a special event, we could add reports in there and have that broadcast. One of the things that the Turnpike did since Jonas is to store emergency commodities. This is our emergency commodity distribution chart. One of the challenges we had with Jonas was how are we going to get food customers if we have an emergency? We recognized that was a problem. So currently we're trying to stockpile food. The red boxes on the right-hand side of the screen, those are our major commodity storage areas. One's in Everett Maintenance, that's out between Bedford and Breezewood. One's here in Harrisburg at Highspire at our tip building, and the other one's up in Slatington up towards the Poconos. That's the area where we have MREs. We have close to 600 MREs at each of those locations, very bad tasting energy bars, and cases of water. We also have shelves at those locations. The yellow locations are where we have a large supply of food that we could send to the other locations as well. We do have some small stockpiles of food at some of the fire companies in the New Baltimore, Somerset area. They have, I think, each 5 cases of water, maybe more than that, 15 cases of water, I'm sorry, and a case of energy bars, 144 energy bars. And then we also have some locations where we just have water and energy bars stored. We are looking for our partners, probably Red Cross, National Guard, wherever. If we have an emergency, we may need their help to assist to get some of those commodities out to them. So some of the things that we're working on, we're updating our unified incident command procedures. These are changes that we needed to make after Jonas because we did not do a good job, so we wanted to make sure we did this. Resource coordination and deployment, as I said, some of our commodities. We did an access gate study. We looked at each of our access gate, made sure that every place on the turnpike, it was called our 5-mile gate study. So we either have a gate and what that gate could do. We have pictures of the gate, if the gate's an electronic gate, if it's a manual gate, and what kind of road that leads to for access. So can we get a truck off there if we have to? Can we get somebody down to the scene if we have to from those gates to an emergency? Communications, we looked at our message board, or 51PA, or web, or Twitter, Facebook, and everything to look to see how we can make those improvements. And we work with our communication department to enhance our footprint for social media and enhance detail to incident management during construction. We do have a work zone traffic incident management program, so we're looking at that, and also where we have access seats in construction zones and how those employees could also help us during an emergency. I'm going to switch here to another program just so you guys can see. I have a slide here, so I want to make sure that I share my screen with you here. This is going to be a news feed, so I want to make sure that I show this to you here. Okay.
Some of the more than 3,000 emails Action News Investigates obtained from the Turnpike, revealing how officials prepared for and reacted to the storm. They show top officials thought they were ready and then congratulated themselves for their response the very same day the Turnpike's chairman was apologizing to the public. The storm that led to this mess was no surprise to Pennsylvania Turnpike officials. January 19th, 3 days before the storm, this email from Turnpike Chief Operating Officer Craig Shuey says, "I know we are ready." The next day, Turnpike CEO Mark Compton gets this email warning of a colossal storm. At 2 p.m., the day the storm hits, the Turnpike's response plan goes out, and it includes this: no plans for heavy wreckers at the Keg or Donegal maintenance sheds until 8 o'clock Saturday morning. Yet that's exactly where the logjam occurred after 2 tractor trailers jackknifed. The crash happened Friday night, so no wreckers were in position to tow them away. Yolanda Johnson was one of hundreds stranded because of the crash. She tried to dig out using a lobster pot.
We're just sitting there in the same spot for over 20 hours, no food, no water, nowhere to go.
Also stranded is Congressman Keith Rothfuss, who tweets about it. That catches the eye of a Turnpike official who says Rothfuss is a personal friend of Turnpike Commissioner Bill Lieberman of Pittsburgh. That prompts Turnpike Operations Director Tim Scanlon to say he is texting Rothfuss directly. They were communicating with the congressman,
But they weren't communicating with us. I guess we needed to be congressmen or something.
By Saturday morning, the logjam has not budged, and the Turnpike is still struggling to respond. At 5:25 a.m., Shuey says there is a pocket of significant issues near the Allegheny Tunnel. He says the Turnpike's effort to turn vehicles around is going very slow because of the heavy snowfall. Still, the Turnpike is having a hard time getting its staff to help. At 12:55 p.m., the Turnpike's traffic operations manager says he can't get out of his neighborhood. About the same time, the Turnpike gets this tweet from a customer saying he can't call the emergency phone number. Operations Director Scanlon says, "I think we are out of phone lines. I can't call out at times." Later Saturday afternoon, a desperate plea for help from people on buses returning from a Right to Life march. That leads Scanlon to ask, can we get some food and water to these buses? Despite the struggles on Sunday afternoon, Turnpike CEO Mark Compton tells top officials, "Your dedication kept our customers out of harm's way." He adds that this was one of the Turnpike's finest hours. Other officials pat each other on the back, one saying, "I'm thankful for being thanked." Another jokes, "Did you two hug it out?" He said this was their finest hour.
No way, not even close.
The very same day top officials are exchanging attaboys, the Turnpike's chairman is saying this.
We want to apologize for what happened.
Johnson says the Turnpike needs to be held accountable for what happened to her and others who were stuck in the cold for more than 20 hours.
You can't leave over 500 cars or whatever it is out in the cold and not tell them anything and feel that you've done a good job at that. You can't.
There are plenty of emails the Turnpike refused to let us see, citing, among other reasons, the ongoing investigation into the storm. That investigation is expected to be completed within the next few weeks. The Turnpike also refused my request for an interview about the emails. Reporting from the Turnpike, Paul Van Osdal, Pittsburgh's Action News 4.
So that was my, have one more slide to show you here that we go on. Hopefully everybody can still see the screen. So that's the last slide. Wanted to make sure everybody, if anybody has any questions, be gladly help answer those as well at this time.
If somebody doesn't have access to a mic, there's a little blue menu button over in the lower right-hand corner, and there's a chat box there that you can click and type in your question, if there's any. But thank you so much, Todd. One question I did have, were you all monitoring social media at the time, or were you receiving those alerts from the buses from a different partner?
Yeah, we were trying to monitor the social media. Our communications and PR staff were trying to monitor that. Part of the problem here, simply from our traffic operations center and our war room staff, is we're pretty overwhelmed with that, and so we were not really able to keep up. I was over at Pima with the Pima staff with the watch office, and I was sitting between them, and we were making decisions over there as to what we're going to try to do. That was one of the challenges, and that's one of the things we worked on. We actually looked at a product that would monitor social media and help us monitor social media. For that, we were actually ready to pull the trigger on purchasing that, but then I guess there were some issues with privacy rights, so that sort of got put aside for now. But yeah, our plan is to make sure that when we have an incident on the Turnpike, somebody from our communication and PR department is going to be monitoring social media to try to respond back and try to get us some better situational awareness as well.
Thank you. And then there's a question here in the chat. Just to clarify, IMT was responding to the scene, correct?
Yeah, and that Cubby had wrote that. Yeah, our the incident management team was dispatched later on from Pima, and I guess one of the regional incident management teams. That was helpful to have them out there. We really should have, the Turnpike should have requested them earlier to try to get them out there as well. So wanted to make sure that we had that out there. I see John also has your slide comparing forecast snow amounts with observed totals is a bit misleading. The forecast consists of a range of potential amounts, typically identified as an expected amount, as a range including the upper bound. Was the PC aware of the forecast range? And if so, how was your pre-event planning modified to account for the historic values that became a part of the forecast? I think, yeah, again, we were planning for this. We had obviously put some towing into place. Again, this was more of an eastern storm at the time. Hindsight's 2020. Obviously, we knew that we were going to get a lot of snow now, but at the time, yeah, snow was coming. Did we fully expect the amount of snow that we got out there? No. Should we have done a better job of this? Yeah, definitely we should have done a better job of this. Hopefully we won't have a repeat for this, but yeah, you always, we try to plan for the worst. I think we had a good plan in place. We had numerous, I think that day, if I remember right, when Jonas happened, I think we probably had 5 conference calls between PennDOT, FEMA, and the Turnpike. I mean, we knew there was snow coming for that particular area. We did not know that amount was coming. Any other questions? I'd be glad to answer anything. Hopefully it was informative if you hadn't seen this before. I've given it several times now.
Were there any plans for a trap queue beforehand, or?
We had some in place, and actually whenever I got this job, I had actually reached out to a number of other states to ask them what their plan was, if they ever had a trap queue like this, and many states didn't have a plan. So this 501PA Connect communications plan that we have out there now is sort of probably one of the first in the country to do this, that we're able to reach people. And those Backlog motorist assistance cards that we have here, that was one of my plans when I took this position, to get those made up. This situation like Jonas certainly helps to push things to the forefront to get them out there. So that's what helped get them out there. And we have them now on a lot of our State Farm Safety Patrol vehicles on the Turnpike all have some of these, so that they're readily available if we need to hand them out to customers, as well as some of the local fire departments. Whenever I handed out the water and the energy bars to them, it was very helpful. I think one of the key things to this whole the whole incident is the partnerships that we've formed since then, and the relationships with our state agencies, with our county government, and with our local responders, I think has helped out. I see Andrew had wrote, the distance between Bedford and Somerset is roughly 36 miles or so. Shouldn't plans for a trap queue have been in effect beforehand? Yeah, again, Andrew, hindsight's 2020. Should we have had a plan for a trap queue? Yes. Normally when we have a trap queue, we're able to get it out of there within an hour or two. There's not many times where we have a trap queue even longer than 3 or 4 hours. What's the plan if you have a trap queue out there? Try to get them off an access gate or get them turned around. If we wouldn't have had 2.5, 3 foot of snow, that would have been a plan. We couldn't really open up those gates and let people off the system onto roadways that are going to be worse than ours. So yeah, should we have had a plan? Yeah, I admit we didn't do a good job beforehand, but hopefully we're better prepared now. Will a situation like this happen ever again on our roadway or on PennDOT roadway? We hope not, but if it does, we're hoping to be better planned. Hopefully that answered your question, Andrew. If that did. We do have what I said earlier too is we have the plans to do a detour. So if a situation like this would have happened, we would have detoured traffic. We would have stopped traffic at Bedford or Breezewood prior to this and got motorists off the roadways. The problem is when we do that, they have to go somewhere. They can't just sit in that town and gridlock that town. They're going to keep traveling. So our detour routes that we have pre-designated detour routes that we let the customers know. And those went down into Maryland, which wasn't really an option for the storm as well. And the people doing that detour would also be the people plowing the snow. So. The detour, I see Andrew said also, why does the detour take drivers into Maryland when Route 30 runs along the turnpike? Well, there were some restrictions that we have. Years and years, I've worked for the turnpike for 18 years. We used to send everybody off the roadway and we do the detour running through whatever town, we'd run them down Route 31 off of Somerset. You could pretty much gridlock a town, taking traffic that's meant for a superhighway and putting it onto local roadways. If we take and dump all our traffic onto Route 30, I could probably guarantee that that's going to come to a standstill pretty rapidly. Route 30 out in that area is kind of a fairly mountainous area as well, a lot of hills, so you're talking a lot of commercial vehicles. Route 30 at that time would have been an option. Our detour routes are approved by PennDOT, so the preferred detour for a turnpike or for a detour like that is interstate to interstate, as opposed to as opposed to more like a local road. I know Route 30 is a fairly big road there, but we still have traffic signals and everything as well. Hopefully that answered that, Andrew.
Thank you so much, Todd. I want to respect everybody's time. I know some people have class or meetings to go to, but we really appreciate you coming on and just explaining more about the intricacies of this large event and how you all were able to manage the safety for these motorists. So thank you so much for taking the time and opportunity to come and join us today. I know we've really appreciated it. I hope all of our participants have appreciated it as well. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks.